The next question, which goes to Adetola Adeleye. She's the head of legal for First Ally Asset Management. So the question is, how can businesses balance compliance requirements with business objectives?
All right. So the way I'll answer this question is to start by saying that compliance keeps business operating. And of course, our client-facing team, our colleagues in the sales team, they get us compensated. So we need both equally. Like you rightly said when you started the session, there's often this back and forth between the client-facing team. That's our colleagues in the sales department, depending on the organization where we work. And of course, those of us in the back office. So you have the guys in compliance, in risk, in legal, and of course in audits. So there's always this back and forth. Okay, you guys are still doing the business. You are now allowing us to do all of these things, but we understand that compliance keep the business operating, of course, because once your license has been maybe withdrawn by your regulator, there's no business to operate at all. So the first point is to know that compliance keeps the business operating, while our colleagues in the client-facing departments, the team, sales team, and all, they get us compensated, and we need both equally. The hack is to balance both interests, to see how we can balance all the interests that we have in place. The next point I'd like to talk about is to understand that there's no one-size-fits-all at all. Compliance will depend on your organization type, the size, and of course, the regulatory obligations that you have. Take, for example, if you go into the capital market, the compliance obligation of an issuing house or a trustee is, of course, relatively different from the compliance obligation of a portfolio or fund manager. So you just have to look at what are my own compliance obligations and what is the probability that this will actually crystallize. Take, for example, you can still use the capital market space as an example. If you're filing AML returns for an issuing house, you mostly have like new returns, right? Because the activities are not in that space. Whereby a fund or portfolio manager, you have something to report on. But again, specific requirements will vary depending on your industry, the type of business that you run, and of course, the regulatory obligations. Now going into how we can balance this interest. Like I said, there is no one size fits all at all. The first is for both team now. So the guys in client-facing team, and of course, the back office, the risk management, legal, compliance, and audit to sit together to see how they can adopt a collaborative approach. There has to be this collaborative approach between, of course, the client-facing team, sales, marketing, relationship managers, account officers, as opposed to having a policing approach. It's just to change from the policing approach to collaborative approach. In doing that, the first thing is to listen to the stories from the product managers, the sales team. They are the ones going out there. The marketing team, the account officer, listen to their story, right? Understand the proposal that they have in place, then ask for clarification where you're not sure this is what they're saying, or additional information where necessary. And of course, it's very important that you challenge the assumption where necessary. Have a round table discussion. I won't say that people are more reasonable when you have them in the room and you're talking face to face as opposed to send email. Just have this sit down session with them, right? Challenge the assumption, offer alternative and create workable solutions. The answer will not outrightly be no. I know there are instances where you can have, okay, this is no, but again, just try and offer alternative and create workable solution based on your own understanding. You explore and propose workable solutions to ensure that the business achieve its own objective without contravening applicable laws and regulation. Basically, what you're trying to do is you are advance the idea, whatever it is that the product manager is bringing forward, or the relationship guys, the marketing team, the sales team, whatever it is they are bringing forward, you advance their idea within the ambit of the law. Then it's very important that you define the risk and, of course, the consequences. Examine what's the probability that this risk is actually going to crystallize. Yeah, just to be sure that it's not something that you just have in your head that this is going to happen. Like I said, have a collaborative approach, listen to the product managers, and of course, understand their proposal, challenge their assumptions, create workable solutions or alternative. The next is to act as liaison with the regulators. Just understand them, proactively engage the regulator before you launch the product. So if you are thinking of want to have this line of products, how about you having the conversation with your regulator just to run it by them, maybe informally or even formally? We have the avenue to say this is what we're trying to do and this is how we're trying to do about it. I know that Babatunde touch on that earlier on. I know the SEC has this regulatory incubation program. They want to hear from you. What is it that you're trying to bring into the market? You can influence the regulators that way to be more receptive to innovative business initiative. Take, for example, 2 years ago, we didn't have digital subbroker license in Nigeria, but a market operator, right, approached the SEC, and that license was actually created. So it's very important that before you even have a product launch, you engage them proactively, and that way you can influence them to be more receptive. If you cannot do this as a market operator, you can also do it through your trade association if you have one. Just go as a bunch, and that way, from the rules making subcommittee of your trade association, you can influence them as well. Now, having addressed maybe my colleague in the back office, it's also important for our client-facing colleagues to understand what's the implication and impact of non-compliance on the objective of the organization. I know we want to meet our budget. We have all these lofty goals, KPIs that we want to meet. We want to go to NPRs and be able to say, oh, we've met our target for this. But we should bear in mind that without the license, we will not be in business. And like I said earlier, the arc is to balance both interests. Compliance keep the business operating, while the sales guys, they also get us compensated. So we need them equally. Just to mention that again, that there's no one size fits all. And in trying to balance interest, right, just try and use what you have. Then you can scale. As you scale and move forward, you can now begin to use other products as well. Let me wrap up by saying that I don't see compliance or legal or risk or auditors stifling business. I see us as Department of Revenue Protection. At the end of the year, we want to be sure that revenue that our colleagues in the client-facing department have made, we are protecting it. And when it's time to share bonus, we can all smile.